He didn't even realize the moment his life ended. Not when he signed the papers. Not when he smiled across the table thinking he'd won. Not even when he took everything he thought mattered. No, it happened when his lawyer leaned in and whispered 5 quiet words into his ear. 5 words. And just like that, Vincent Mercer, confident, untouchable, always in control, went completely still. I watched the color drain from his face. Watched his fingers tighten around the pen like it might anchor him to reality. Watched the smallest crack form in the man who had spent years convincing the world he was unbreakable. That was the moment. That was when everything I had waited for finally came together. And me? I smiled. Not out of cruelty. Not out of revenge. But because, for the first time in a very long time, I was free. But you can't understand that moment unless you understand everything that came before it. So let me take you back. My name is Alexis Dunst. I'm 34 years old, and until 3 months ago, I was married to Vincent Mercer. 15 years. 15 years of building a life, of believing in someone, of standing beside a man who promised me a future that never truly existed. 15 years is a long time to be wrong about someone. But I'm stubborn. I always have been. My grandmother used to say that stubbornness, when paired with patience, becomes something powerful. At the time I thought she meant survival. Turns out she meant strategy. I met Vincent when I was 17. I had just finished high school early, not because I was extraordinary but because I was determined. I wanted out of my parents' house. I wanted independence, structure, something that belonged to me. So I took the first opportunity one could find. A file clerk position at a law firm. The pay was terrible. The hours were long. My hands were constantly covered in tiny paper cuts. But it didn't matter. It was mine. And I held on to that feeling like it was everything. By the time I turned 18, I had worked my way up to legal assistant. I learned quickly. I paid attention. I understood systems, numbers, patterns. And more importantly, I understood people. I knew when to speak and when silence gave me more power. That skill would matter later. More than I ever expected. I met Vincent at a client event. He was 24. Confident. Charismatic. The kind of man who could walk into a room and make it feel like he owned it, even if he didn't. He talked about his future like it was already written. A real estate empire. Wealth. Influence. Success. He didn't just believe it. He expected it. And somehow that certainty pulled me in. He said he was going to build something incredible. I said I'd help him handle the paperwork. That was our beginning. Not romantic. Not dramatic. Just practical. Which, in hindsight, should have told me everything. We got married when I was 19. Tyler was born when I was 20. And just like that, my life shifted into something steady, structured, and full. I worked part-time, took care of our son, managed our home, saved what I could. Always saving. Because my grandmother's voice never left me. A woman should always have something of her own. Not hidden. Not secret. Just hers. Something that couldn't be taken away. I listened. And that decision would one day save me. When I was 23, Vincent's business finally started to grow. He came to me with excitement, urgency, and a request. He needed help. Real help. Not just support, but someone he could trust with everything. So I left my job and stepped into his world. From the outside, it looked like success. From the inside, it looked like me doing everything. I handled the finances, managed operations, coordinated projects, dealt with clients, organized events, styled properties, and still came home to cook dinner, help with homework, and keep our lives running. I wasn't just helping. I was holding the entire structure together. But none of that came with a title. To the world, I was just his wife. And for a long time, I accepted that. Years passed. The business grew. Vincent became more visible, more confident, more admired, and slowly more distant. He stopped asking for my opinion, stopped including me in decisions, started staying out later, started criticizing things that had never been a problem before. My clothes, my cooking, my lack of ambition. That one always made me pause, because I knew exactly how much I was doing, but I also knew something else. He didn't want a partner anymore. He wanted someone invisible. And then came the night that changed everything. A quiet Tuesday. I was cooking dinner, his favorite. He walked in, sat down, and looked at me like I was a meeting he needed to get through. I want a divorce. No hesitation. No emotion. Just final. Then he added, almost casually, I want the house, the business, the cars, everything. You can keep Tyler. Like he was dividing property. Like our son was an afterthought. Like I was nothing more than an inconvenience being removed. I didn't cry. I didn't argue. I just looked at him. Because something inside me had already gone still. What I didn't know at that moment was that he had been preparing for this. For months. Lawyers. Documents. Plans. While I was living our life, he was planning his exit. The next day, his mother arrived. Perfectly composed. Perfectly rehearsed. She spoke to me with that familiar tone. Sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. You should have tried harder. Men need certain things. As if I had failed some invisible test. I listened. Because arguing with people like her never changes anything. That first week blurred together. Rooms shifted. Spaces changed. I was moved, reduced, minimized. And to everyone watching, I looked like I was falling apart. But here's the truth. 3 years earlier, I had already seen everything. It started with numbers. Small inconsistencies at first. Transfers that didn't align. Counts that didn't make sense. And once I noticed, I couldn't stop looking. So I followed the trail. Late nights. Quiet research. Careful observation. Until the full picture came into focus. Vincent wasn't building wealth. He was hiding debt. Massive, overwhelming debt. Loans stacked on loans. Properties leveraged beyond their value. Accounts stretched thin. Nearly $2 million owed. We didn't own our life. We were buried under it. I remember sitting in the dark, surrounded by documents, feeling something strange. Not panic. Not fear. Clarity. 'Cause suddenly everything made sense. The long hours. The distance. The control. I could have confronted him. I could have exposed everything. But I didn't. Because I knew him. And I knew exactly what he would do. He would twist it. Deny it. Blame me. And protect himself. So instead, I protected me. And Tyler. I secured what was mine. Separated it legally. Documented everything. And then, I waited. 3 years. 3 years of silence. 3 years of watching. 3 years of letting him believe he was in control. So when he finally asked for everything, I didn't fight. I didn't argue. I agreed. Because he wasn't taking assets. He was taking responsibility. For all of it. And now back to that moment. The courtroom. The signatures. The quiet confidence in his posture. The belief that he had won. Until his lawyer leaned in. And whispered those 5 words. You're taking all the debt. And just like that, everything changed. His expression broke. His certainty shattered. His victory vanished. Because for the first time, he understood. And I finally let myself breathe. Because sometimes, the strongest move isn't fighting. It's waiting. Watching. And letting someone walk straight into the consequences they built themselves. Point 6.